All right. So who can tell us what Shevitat means? What does Shevitat mean? Why is this book called Shevitat Asor? Shevitat. I've highlighted it here in the Hebrew. What does that word look like? Does it look like another word that you know? Shevitat, Shavit, Shabbat. So this word Shevitat, it's related to the word Shabbat, Sabbath. Right? So Shevitat means it's the verb for ceasing, to stop doing something. So it's kind of like Shabbat. And Asor means 10th. 10th. So it's the day of ceasing, the day of ceasing creative activity on the 10th of that month. All right, Mr. Maurice, would you like to read the English?
But I have to drive my bike.
No problem. I know
So
you told me before.
I'll
I'm
just
sorry.
catch you in 15 minutes.
That's fine.
I'll be in home.
No problem. No problem. Priya, would you like to read the English?
They contain 4 mitzvot, 2 positive commandments and 2 negative commandments. They are to rest on this day, not to perform work on it, to fast on this day, not to eat or drink on it.
Okay. Tamshichi, continue. Tamshichi.
These mitzvot are explained in the chapters that follow.
Excellent. All right, Mr. Zohar, would you like to read the next halacha?
It is a positive commandment to refrain from all work on the 10th day of the 7th month. As Leviticus 23:32 states, it shall be a Sabbath of Sabbaths for you. Anyone who performs a forbidden labor negates the observance of this positive commandment and violates a negative commandment, as Numbers 29:7 states, you shall not perform any labor.
All right. Let's discuss that just a little bit. What word is being translated as labor? What Hebrew word?
Melacha?
Yes, melacha, melacha. So the normal Hebrew word for work is avodah, avodah. And there are some other Hebrew words as well. But the Torah specifically uses this word melacha, melacha, melacha. So there's a few different theories about why this word is used. I'll give you a few quickly, but we will not go too much into them. One is because it appears to be related to the word malach. I'm sorry, melech. Melech. Melech is king, like kingship or dominance. So these are types of activities, the sort of activities that we're not supposed to do on Shabbat or on Yom Kippur or any of the biblical holidays. They are activities that express melucha, which is like kingship or dominance over creation. So God gave us permission to control creation, to dominate the world and rule over it for 6 days in the week. And we have to do that to survive also. But on Shabbat, it's the day that by ceasing, by stopping doing acts that show dominance over creation, by doing that, we are showing that the true malucha, the true kingship belongs to God and not to us. Another possible origin for this word is that it's related to the word malach, malach. Who can tell us what malach means? What is a malach?
I guess angel.
Very good. Yes. And
or messenger as well.
Yes. It's more like an agent or an emissary, someone who is kind of being like the hand extended out from someone else. So they are a representative doing the work of someone else. So I don't want to get too long-winded about that, but those are the two possible etymologies, two possible sources for this word malacha. All right. And let's just remember that the type of work that's not allowed on Shabbat or Yom Kippur or on the other biblical holidays, it's not all work that's forbidden, it's specific types of work. And of course, our sages explain their understanding of that. And we also see in this verse, in Numbers 29, verse 7, that God describes Yom Kippur with the same word that is used to describe the weekly seventh-day Sabbath, Shabbat. So this is why this book, it's not called Yom Kippur. It's not called the book of Yom Kippur. It's called Shevitat Asor, the Sabbath of the 10th. Sabbath of the 10th of the month. All right, let's get someone else to read. Mr. Besalel, would you like to read if you can?
Sure. The English?
Yes, sir.
What liability does a person incur for performing a forbidden labor on this day? If he performs the forbidden labor willfully as a conscious act of defiance, he is liable for kareth. If he performs a forbidden labor inadvertently, he is liable to bring a sin offering whose nature is fixed.
Okay. So we see treating Yom Kippur like a Shabbat, like Sabbath, it's a very serious mitzvah. It's a very serious commandment. It's not just a rabbinic commandment. It's much more serious than praying at the right time of the day every day. It's more serious than the blessings that we say before we eat. Okay. But we also see here something beautiful. Unlike the way that religion or God or the Torah is often misrepresented, we see here that God is not waiting in the sky. We don't even believe God's literally in the sky or anything like that. But God is not like some Greek god or Roman god waiting up in the clouds, ready to throw down a lightning bolt to electrocute us and kill us when we make a little mistake, right? In Judaism, that we believe that God wants our heart, our commitment, but God does not expect us to do everything perfectly and never make a mistake. So that's why the halacha is careful to say that the most severe punishment, kareth, this punishment for breaking Yom Kippur, it's only considered punishable breaking of Yom Kippur, violating Yom Kippur, if you do it on purpose, consciously defying God, in conscious rebellion against God. It's not if you accidentally did something. It's not if you did something on purpose, but you didn't realize it's not allowed, right? That's completely different from breaking God's commandments on purpose. Two totally different things. So if anyone would like to write these words in your vocabulary, you should have a pen and paper next to you. Pencil and paper. All right. Let's someone is taking over my screen, so I need to fix that. I do not want to auto accept. I don't know why you're able to accidentally scribble on the screen if I don't have accept clicked. It's odd. It's clear. Let's continue. All right, if you have a pen and paper, some words you can write down for vocabulary to learn is melacha. That's the kind of work not allowed on Shabbat or Yom Kippur. You can also write down the word beratzon. Beratzon, that means willful, on purpose. Beratzon, in this case, birsono. Beratzon. You can also write kareth. Kareth is the most severe penalty. Abad is giving us a little commentary on this word. Who would like to read the commentary? Let's get someone to read the commentary.
The cutting of the soul, causing premature death of the earthly plane and severing of the soul's connection with Elohim on the spiritual plane.
Right. So that's kareth. If you guys would like to write that down, add it to your vocabulary. All right, and again, this is only incurred. That's only a punishment when a person intentionally violates Yom Kippur, does an act of malacha, forbidden work on Yom Kippur, on purpose, in defiance of God. All right, next paragraph. Let's see. Priya, would you like to read the next paragraph?
This is Sipora.
Oh, Sipora. I'm sorry. Shalom Nyaka. I'm mixing Spanish with Telugu now.
Shalom Tamudu. All the forbidden labors for which one is liable to be executed by stoning for performing on the Sabbath cause one to be liable for kareth. If performed on the 10th of Tishrei, any activity that incurs the obligation of a sin offering on the Sabbath incurs?
Correct.
Is it
Incurs. Correct. Incurs.
the obligation of a sin offering on Yom Kippur?
Right. Incurs is like takes upon the obligation or takes upon a responsibility. Something becomes applied to them. That's what incurred means. All right. So what is the 10th of Tishrei? What does that refer to?
10th of Tishrei means temple destroyed.
Say it again.
The temple destroyed.
All right. So 10th of Tishrei is referring to Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur in this context. Okay.
Tishrei month, 10th mean date, Yom Kippur.
Correct. That's why this book is called Shevitat Asor. Asor means 10th. Shevitat means to stop doing malacha, to stop doing work. It's kind of like the word Shabbat. So the book in the Mishneh Torah where we learn about Yom Kippur, right? This is the outline of Mishneh Torah. And I encourage you all to read it when we finish our class. Read it before Yom Kippur, because we cannot cover everything in our classes. They're too short. So you type in Mishneh Torah here, you see all the books of the Mishneh Torah. So it's the 1, 2, 3. You go to the third book, you find Shevitat Asor. That's where we find the laws for Yom Kippur. It's only 3 chapters. It's not long. Okay. So there is not a death penalty by a human court. If a person does malacha on Yom Kippur, there is not a death penalty by a human court, but there is kareth. There is kareth, which is more severe than the death penalty. You're cut off from God. All right, bo namshich. Roslin. Oh, I guess she keeps coming and going for some reason. She's having computer problems. Mr. Zohar, would you like to read the next paragraph?
Any activity that is forbidden to be performed on the Sabbath, although it is not a forbidden labor, is forbidden to be performed on Yom Kippur. If one performs such an act, one is punished by stripes for rebellion. Correct?
Correct. Rebellion.
as one is punished for performing the same act on the Sabbath.
Okay, and if any of you guys have any questions at any point, speak up. All right. And Sipora,
Ah,
just to let you know, we have some guests in our class today because I waited a good while and no one was joining. So I just opened the room to whoever wants to join.
oh,
Okay.
okay.
All right. Does anybody have any questions so far? You're not
Here,
worried? Go ahead.
the punishment is stripes. Stripes means what?
It's like being spanked.
Huh?
Spanking, like you spank a child.
Ah,
So this is exactly this is exactly what I was hoping someone would ask, but no one spoke up until you did, and I'm thinking, huh, no one is bothered by this. I guess everyone's okay with being spanked. So thank you for asking the obvious question. So you must have some questions about this. If you break Yom Kippur, right?
Yeah.
If someone, let's say I think that using your phone on Yom Kippur is doing a malacha. That's a forbidden action on Yom Kippur. But someone else thinks it's allowed. Does that mean that the person who thinks using your phone on Yom Kippur is allowed, does that mean the other person can just come up to him and start beating him up? If someone disagrees, sees him using the phone, and they disagree, they think it breaks Yom Kippur. Does that mean the one person can go and just beat the other person up to punish him? What do you guys think?
I would hope not. I would hope at least a big team would be involved.
Exactly. So, and it's not even just any bidin. It has to be an authorized bidin. It's within the context of a formal government. All of this is in the context, of a formal Israelite government. And these are not laws that are enforced by the modern secular government of Israel. They need to be governments that are ordained with smicha, going back to the Great Sanhedrin. And this is not all speculation. The same way we can go to Mishneh Torah and see in the third book, Sefer Zmanim, we can find the laws in Yom Kippur. You can also find all the laws regarding courts, if you would like to learn them. It's in the last book of Mishneh Torah. It's called Sanhedrin u'ha'onshim ha'mesurin lahem. The Sanhedrin and the punishments that are given over to them. So that's where you can learn all of those laws. It's a lot of chapters, so it's not just it's not child's play. Okay. We have some more people joining. Baruch Hashem. So basically, nobody gets stripes for rebellion in the current era. They could if we had proper courts, if they wish to associate with the people of Israel, but we do not in practice have that right now. And we should not be beating people up in a vigilante way. Okay, next paragraph. Let's get someone else to read. Ariella, welcome.
Baruch Hashem, Shalom, Rabbi. How are you?
Baruch Hashem, how are you?
Baruch Hashem, thank God, I'm doing well, getting ready for work, getting ready for Yom Kippur. So I thought this was good. I saw it right when you were starting class.
Awesome, welcome.
Thank you.
Ariella, would you like to read this paragraph?
Sure, absolutely. Whatever is forbidden to be carried on the Sabbath is forbidden to be carried on Yom Kippur. Whatever is forbidden to be said or done at the outset of the Sabbath is likewise forbidden on Yom Kippur. The general principle is that there is no difference between the Sabbath and Yom Kippur. in this regard, except that a person who willfully performs a forbidden labor on the Sabbath is liable for execution by being stoned to death, and on Yom Kippur, such an act warrants merely kareth, being cut
Okay.
off.
And I'm not sure if you were in here a moment ago or not, but the obvious question should be, does this mean we just go around throwing stones at people who keep Shabbat in a way that we disagree with?
Absolutely not, no.
Right? That itself would actually be breaking the Torah, right? Because we have a system. The Torah has a system of government that it's supposed to operate within. It's not an every man for himself endeavor, right?
Yes, like with the Sanhedrin, right? Wouldn't they have had to institute something like that against somebody, and it had to be done multiple times and
Exactly.
warned about that?
Exactly. It is, like you said, they get more than one warning. So by virtue of the fact that the laws of punishments in Torah Judaism require that the person be warned by qualified witnesses, they have to see him doing the act and warn him. By virtue of the fact that they give him a warning, and if he stops, there's no punishment. And if he does it again and they warn him and then he stops, even if he did it 2 times, he doesn't get punished. He has to ignore the warnings 2 times from qualified witnesses in order to even be brought before a court. They don't kill him on the spot. They bring him before a court, and then the court analyzes the witnesses and tries to find contradictions between the witnesses. And only then could the person be put to death. And even then, they have to examine the person who supposedly did the sin and make sure that he wasn't acting out of like mental illness or out of duress. So it's not the image that we typically get from a Sunday school class that Jews are walking around throwing stones at innocent little people, you know.
Absolutely. And like I even remember learning that it's a court that executes more than 7 people in 70 years is an unjust court.
Correct. And 70 is probably just a symbolic number for in a long period of time.
Wow.
Our sages use a lot of symbolism when it comes to numbers, but it gets the point across, right? Killing people, even for violating the Torah, is not supposed to be a common thing. The general rule is we try to find a way to save the person from the penalty, and we do that by different means. One is by trying to find a way to invalidate the witnesses. So here in the last book of Mishnah Torah, you find Hilchot Adut. Adut refers to witnesses. That's where you can find all the laws about witnesses. They have to fulfill a whole list of requirements to even be a valid witness. So yeah, it's not a simple thing. Going back to the laws of Yom Kippur, Shevitat Asor. All right, let's get someone else to read the next halacha. Forgive me if I mispronounce your name. Madhubabu? Madhubabu? Would you like to read? So far, we have learned that regarding Yom Kippur, there's no difference between Shabbat and Yom Kippur when it comes to forbidden actions, malacha. There are differences in the penalties for intentionally breaking the Torah. Okay. So the next halacha, I'm going to call on someone. Mr. David Daniel, would you like to read the next paragraph? Sipora, you with us?
Yes.
Ma shlomech? How are you doing? Sipora, how was your Rosh Hashanah?
Good.
Good? You
Good.
sound good.
Yeah.
Can you summarize for us what you have learned so far? Tell us in summary what you have learned so far about Yom Kippur and Shabbat.
Yom Kippur and Shabbat. In Shabbat, we can eat and we can pray, we can enjoy the Sabbath, but not in Yom Kippur. We do fasting.
Okay.
We do fasting in Yom Kippur and we don't do any work even in Sabbath or in Yom Kippur.
Okay, so when it comes to work, Shabbat and Yom Kippur are the same, right? But we can pray on both, and we should pray on both. So not working, not doing malacha on Yom Kippur.
Not doing malacha in Yom Kippur or in Shabbat also.
Right, they're the same because the Torah calls Yom Kippur Shabbat. It actually calls it Shabbat. So Yom Kippur is a type of Shabbat. And the only difference is that the penalties, the punishment is different.
Yes.
So if we do a malacha on purpose, you have to know you're doing it and you have to do it because you hate God.
Malacha, we will be cut off.
Correct. I mean, this is not only if you do malacha, you have to do the malacha on purpose because you hate God, because you don't care about God. You're doing it to rebel in defiance. So if a person just makes an accident because they didn't learn enough or they're just confused and they're not sure about the laws of Yom Kippur, you don't get kareth because you made an accident. Kareth is only the punishment when you do it on purpose and you know what you're doing. You just don't
in Shabbat, we don't have any punishment. We can enjoy, and in Yom Kippur, we have to punish ourselves, and
you're talking about punishing ourselves.
It means we are not enjoying or we are not doing any joy.
Correct. We afflict ourselves. Correct.
And even also we don't sleep. We don't sleep on a bed.
Oh, you can sleep on a bed, but if you don't want to, you don't have to. So this is why we're learning the laws of Yom Kippur. Some things people do voluntarily that is extra, and some things are not extra, they're requirements. So that's why we're learning these halachot. Sister, can you summarize in Telugu the similarity and the difference between Shabbat and Yom Kippur?
Okay. Sabbath ఏమో మనకి మనము సబ్బాత్కి ముందే ప్రిపేర్ చేసుకున్న ఫుడ్ తినొచ్చు. సబ్బాత్ లో ఎంజాయ్ చేయొచ్చు. ఎంజాయ్ అంటే చక్కగా సంతోషంగా మాట్లాడుకుంటా పాటలు పాడుకుంటా హషేంని స్తుతిస్తాము సబ్బాత్ లో. కానీ యోమ్ కిప్పుర్ మాత్రం మనము వండుకోవటానికి లేదు, తినటానికి లేదు. సబ్బాత్ లో పని చెయ్యము, జీవనోపాధికి సంబంధించిన పని ఏది చెయ్యము. అలాగే యోమ్ కిప్పుర్ లో కూడా జీవనోపాధికి సంబంధించిన పని ఏది చెయ్యము. ఒకవేళ జీవనోపాధికి సంబంధించిన పని చేస్తే కరెక్ట్, అంటే హషేం దగ్గర నుండి మనం కట్ ఆఫ్ అయిపోతాం. మనల్ని హషేం దూరం పెట్టేస్తాడు అనమాట. దూరం పెట్టడం అంటే దూరంగా కాదు, మన పేరు జీవగ్రంథంలో ఉండదు. అందుకనే ఆ రోజు ఎటువంటి పని చేయకూడదు యోమ్ కిప్పుర్ లో.
And make sure they know that you only get kareth, you only get cut off on Yom Kippur if you do the malacha knowing that it's not allowed and you just don't care. You don't get kareth if it's an accident. There is no kareth for accidents.
ఒకవేళ నువ్వు గాని కావాలని పని చేస్తే నీకు హషేం మీద భయం లేకపోతే ప్రేమ లేనట్టు, అప్పుడే మాత్రమే నువ్వు జీవనోపాధికి సంబంధించిన పని చేస్తావు అని అర్థం.
All right. Tizkul mitzvot.
Tizkul lasot.
Toda rabba. All right, let's get someone else to read. Mr. David Daniel, would you like to read for us?
Yes, sir.
All right, awesome. So let's see. Go ahead and read this halacha.
Shalom, Rabbi.
Shalom uvracha.
It is permitted to trim a vegetable on the day of Yom Kippur from mid-afternoon onwards. What is meant by trimming a vegetable? To remove the
Wilted.
wilted.
That means the
is-
leaves became small. They don't look nice. The
Okay,
leaves
okay.
are getting ugly on a vegetable.
Okay. And to cut the others to prepare them for consumption. Similarly, it is permitted to crack open nuts and to open pomegranates on Yom Kippur from mid-afternoon onwards. These leniencies
Leniencies.
were granted so that on will not endure hardship.
Right?
When
Because we're not eating on Yom Kippur, right? So we're very hungry. And because we are hungry, and it's difficult for a lot of people, so technically you're allowed to do these things on Yom Kippur, but they wanted us, our sages, Hazal, the ancient rabbis, Hazal, they wanted us to wait at least until mid-afternoon. Once it's afternoon on Yom Kippur, you can begin preparing for the meal that you will eat after Yom Kippur. So they're not saying that it's okay to eat on Yom Kippur in the afternoon. That's not what they're saying. But they are saying you can begin like preparing for the meal that you will have once Yom Kippur ends. Any questions? Does anybody have any questions? Sipora, can you translate that for us to Telugu? Once it's afternoon of Yom Kippur, mid-afternoon, then you are allowed to begin preparing for the meal that you will eat after Yom Kippur.
After fasting, we can eat these nuts or seeds.
Correct. After Yom Kippur. But you're
After
allowed to begin preparing it before Yom
Okay.
Kippur finishes
Ah.
in the afternoon.
యోమ్ కిప్పుర్ మధ్యాహ్నం రోజు మనము వెజిటబుల్స్ అంటే ఏదైనా కూరగాయ ముక్కలు తినడానికి కానీ వాటి మీద ఉన్న చిన్న చిన్న ఆకులు తీసేసి కట్ చేసుకోవటం కానీ లేదా దానిమ్మకాయ ఒలుసుకోవటం కానీ దాని తొక్క తీసి గింజలు తీసుకోవటం కానీ లేదంటే నట్స్ వాటి మీద ఉన్న షెల్స్ తీసేసి ఉంచుకొని అవి మనం ఫాస్టింగ్ అయిపోయిన తర్వాత తినటానికి మాత్రం ఉపయోగించుకోవచ్చు. అంటే ఫాస్టింగ్ అయిపోయింది ఇంకా తినాలి అనుకుంటాం కాబట్టి ఇప్పుడు ప్రిపేర్ చేసుకొని ఉంచుకోవచ్చు, కానీ అప్పుడు కట్ చేసి మనం యోమ్ కిప్పుర్ లో తినటానికి కాదు అవి. తీసుకులా మిస్ అవుతుంది.
Okay, so this is different from Shabbat because on Shabbat you should not prepare for meals on Shabbat that you would eat after Shabbat. Right? You can prepare meals on Shabbat if you're not cooking with fire and some other things. You can prepare meals on Shabbat, but you cannot prepare meals on Shabbat for eating after Shabbat. But on Yom Kippur, you can do this. And this difference between Yom Kippur and Shabbat, it's rabbinic difference, not from the Torah. These are rabbinic differences. Right? And it's saying in North Africa and in Iraq, their custom is to not even do this on Yom Kippur. But even though that's the custom, it is allowed. From Hazal, it's allowed. Individual communities can create their own customs, as long as they remember that these are voluntary customs. It's their local voluntary custom. But when it comes to the universal law of Israel, you are allowed to prepare for food on Yom Kippur from the afternoon on. You can prepare for food that you will eat after Yom Kippur. Okay. Let's read. Ariela, would you like to read the next paragraph?
Sure, Rabbi, absolutely. There is another positive commandment on Yom Kippur to refrain from eating and drinking. As Leviticus 16:29 states, you shall afflict your souls. According to the oral tradition, it has been taught what is meant by afflicting one's soul, fasting.
All right. So 2 words to add to your vocabulary if you guys have a pen and paper next to you. Ta'anit, ta'anit. That's T-A'-A-N-I-T. Ta'anit. Ta'anit is a common Hebrew word used to refer to fasting, but it literally means affliction, afflicting. And then the true word for fasting in Hebrew is som, som. It's usually transliterated T-Z-O-M, but it's good enough to just put S-O-M, som. That's fasting. A common
Rabbi,
greeting. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
sorry. What about Yeladim?
So we're going to get to those laws. We are going to get there. That's a very good question. And if we do not get there today, then please remind me of any questions you guys have about Yom Kippur and send it to me in our WhatsApp group. Beseder? But
Yes.
to give you a simple answer right now, little children should not be forced to fast. Little children should not be made to fast. If they are almost bar mitzvah or bat mitzvah, if they're all about 12 or 13, then they should be taught to fast. But this is on the condition that the parents know how to prepare them for the fast. Right? We shouldn't just throw a child into a fast, not eating or drinking all day long. It's the parent's responsibility to train the child how you should fast. So it's not like you do exercise all day long and then you just drink a little bit of water and then the next day you don't eat or drink anything. That's not good. We should teach them that they should drink plenty of water and eat fatty and high protein meal before the fast. Who can tell me why they should have high protein or fatty meals? By the way, this is not in halakha. This is just like medical knowledge, scientific knowledge. Why is it good that they eat fatty or high protein meal before the
If
fast?
we eat high protein before fasting, the digestion will take more time and it gives strength in the fasting time.
Yes, very good, because it digests more slowly. Very good. And another thing you can do with training your children is by the time a boy is 13, he's required by Torah to do the full fast. So before he's 13, let's say from the age of 9 to 12, you can be preparing him to get used to the fast by having him, let's say when he's 9 years old, if he's struggling to fast, you can have him fast just a few hours longer than normal. Just a few hours longer than normal. Then the next time he fasts, he can do maybe half a day. And then once he's able to do that and he's no longer afraid, then he can maybe by the time he's, almost bar mitzvah, then he will be able to do a full day.
Here one question.
Yes, ma'am.
The question is, if somebody have some health issues, but they are fit health, they have fit health,
Okay.
and they want to do the fasting.
Yes.
In middle of the time, if they are thirsty, they don't want to take food, but they want to drink water.
We can't drink water just because we're thirsty on Yom Kippur. But if you are so thirsty that you are feeling like you might collapse, or you feel like a severe headache, or different things like this, where you can tell that your health is getting bad, not just that you're thirsty, but is getting bad, then you can definitely drink, and you should drink in those situations.
And when we continue our fasting.
Well, they should drink as much as they need to be healthy. But if they feel healthy again, then they can fast again. Also, the decision who decides whether they can drink or not, it's ultimately that person himself. It's not another person. So if that person says, I'm in trouble, I need to drink, we should not say, oh, let's first take you to the doctor. Or if there's a doctor there, the doctor should say, no, I don't think you need to drink. And then he shouldn't be allowed to drink. That's wrong. If the person feels that it's an emergency, he needs to drink, no one should prevent him from drinking. All right?
మళ్ళీ
But
ఎవరైనా యోమ్
go ahead.
కిప్పుర్లో ఉపవాసం ఉంటున్నట్లయితే మనము మందులతోటి ఉండాలి, హెల్త్ ప్రాబ్లమ్స్ ఉండి అయినా కూడా మనం ఉపవాసం ఉండాలి అని అనుకుంటా ఉపవాసం ఉంటే మంచినీళ్ళు అయ్యి దప్పికయ్యి తలనొప్పి వచ్చి ఆ కండిషన్ హెల్త్ కండిషన్ ఏదైనా ప్రాబ్లం అవుతుంది అంటే మీరు మంచినీళ్ళు తాగేసి మీరు ఫాస్టింగ్ కంటిన్యూ చేయొచ్చు. ఒక ఫాస్టింగ్ అంటే నీళ్లు తాగిన తర్వాత మీ ఆరోగ్య పరిస్థితి బాగుంది అనుకుంటే ఇంకా తినకుండా కంటిన్యూ చేయండి. కానీ బయట వ్యక్తులు అంటే నువ్వు ఇంకా నీరు తాగావు ఇంకా చేయబాక, లేకపోతే నీరు తాగావు కదా ఇప్పటికే నీ కళ్ళు తిరిగినాయి, నువ్వు తినకోకుండా ఉండొద్దు, తిను అని ఫోర్స్ చేస్తే కాదు. మీ బాడీకి మీ కండిషన్ ఏంటో తెలుస్తుంది కాబట్టి మీరేం చేయాలి, ఒకవేళ నీళ్లు తాగాలి, తలనొప్పేస్తుంది, ఇబ్బందిగా ఉందంటే నీళ్లు తాగి మీరు ఇంకా నేను ఉపవాసం ఉండగలను అనుకుంటే ఉపవాసాన్ని కంటిన్యూ చేయొచ్చు. మీ కండిషన్ బాగాలేదు, మీరు ఇంకా తినొద్దు అని తినండి అని డాక్టర్ గాని చెప్పారంటే అప్పుడు కూడా మీరు ఫాస్టింగ్ ని ఆపేసేసి తినొచ్చు అన్నమాట యోమ్ కిప్పుర్ లో. Iskula miswor.
Iskula asod. All right, let's continue. English. Would you like to read Sipora? Well,
Okay.
let me give you a break. You just said a whole lot. Let's see. Ariela, would you like to, or David? David, have you read?
Rabbi.
Yes, sir.
Whoever fasts on this day fulfills a positive commandments. Whoever eats or drinks on this day negates the observance of this positive commandment and violates a negative commandment. As Rabbi 23:29 status, any soul that does not affect itself will be cut off, since the Torah punish a person who does not fast with kareth. We can derive from this that we are forbidden to eat and drink on this day. A person who eats a drink or drink
Inadvertently. Yeah, it means on accident. Okay. Not on purpose.
Okay. On this day is liable to bring a sin offering of a fixed nature.
Okay, so if someone eats or drinks on Yom Kippur on accident, he does not get kareth, right? He does not get the worst punishment. He is not cut off from God, because kareth, the most bad punishment, it's only if you do it on purpose and you know what you're doing and you just don't care about God's word. But if it's an accident because you did not have knowledge or something like that, there is no kareth. There's only a sin offering. Okay, let's see. Mr. Zohar, would you like to read the next paragraph?
Similarly, according to the oral tradition, it has been taught that it is forbidden to wash, anoint oneself, wear shoes, or engage in sexual relations on this day. It is a mitzvah to refrain from these activities in the same way one refrains from eating and drinking.
Okay, that was a short paragraph, so you can continue.
This is derived from the exegesis of the expression, a Sabbath of Sabbaths. A Sabbath implies refraining from eating of Sabbaths, refraining from these activities.
All right, so it's not just a ceasing. Remember, Shabbat means ceasing, to stop doing something. So it's not just called a Shabbat, it's called a Shabbat, Shabbathon. So it's doubled. So it's like a Sabbath of Sabbaths. Not only is it a ceasing, but it's a ceasing, even more ceasing. So we're ceasing from even more than what we don't do on a normal Shabbat. On a normal Shabbat, you can anoint yourself, you can have relations with your spouse. But on Yom Kippur, it's a Shabbat, Shabbaton. It's a Sabbath of Sabbaths. So we should not do those things on Yom Kippur. Yom ha-Kippurim. Okay, let's see. Basalel, would you like to read, or you're still at work?
Hey, sure.
Go ahead.
One is liable, however, for kareth, or a sin offering, only for eating and drinking. If one washes, anoints oneself, wears shoes, or engages in sexual relations, one receives stripes for rebelliousness.
Okay. So this is a fundamental difference. The difference is in the punishment, there's only stripes for rebelliousness. That term in Hebrew is called makath marduth. Makath marduth, if you would like to write it down. And it's good to remember this term because anytime you see in rabbinic law the punishment of makath marduth, stripes for rebelliousness, that tells you that this punishment is rabbinic in origin. There's never makath marduth for a punishment from the Torah. It's always rabbinic in origin. Everybody say makath marduth. Makath marduth.
Makkah, that is.
All right. That's a rabbinic punishment. Let's see. Would you like to read one more little paragraph, mister?
Yes, absolutely.
All right.
Just as the obligation to refrain from work applies both during the day and at night, so too the obligation to refrain from these activities and thus to afflict oneself applies both during the day and at night.
All right. Tizku mitzvot. Everybody say tizku asot. Tizku asot.
School also.
School also.
All right. That means may you merit to do God's will. May you merit to do commandments. Okay. Mr. Misipora. Keta haba. Next paragraph. Keta haba. You know what? Before you do that, maybe you should translate this to Telugu, what we just learned about washing, anointing shoes, and having sexual relations on Yom Kippur.
యోమ్ కిప్పుర్ లో మనము కొన్ని తప్పులు చేయకూడదు. ఏంటంటే కడుక్కోవటం, తినటం, తాగటం, చెప్పులంటే లెదర్వి, వాటిని కూడా కడగకూడదు. తర్వాత మనల్ని మనం ప్రతిష్ఠించుకోవాలి. తర్వాత షూస్ వేసుకోకూడదు. తర్వాత రిలేషన్ ఉండకూడదు భార్యతోటి. తర్వాత ఇవి గాని కావాలని చేస్తే మనకి పనిష్మెంట్ ఉంటది. అందుకనే కావాలని చెయ్యొద్దు. ఇటువంటి తప్పులు చేయకోకుండా ఉండాలన్నమాట మనం.
And maybe you can remind them that all of these punishments, they are not a random person punishing people, and they are not your local rabbi beating people. These punishments are in the context of an Israelite government, a proper Israelite government. Right? We do not have that currently. Sipora,
Huh?
can you let them know that anytime it talks about punishments in halakha, it's talking about punishments in the context of a proper Israelite government with witnesses.
ఎప్పుడైనా కానీ ఇక్కడ పనిష్మెంట్ గురించి మాట్లాడుతుంటే అంటే దండన గురించి మాట్లాడుతుంటే అవి ఇజ్రాయేలీ గవర్నమెంట్ ఆ రోజుల్లో ఉన్న చట్ట ప్రకారం పెద్దలు చూసి మీరు ఇటువంటి తప్పు చేశారు అందుకు గాను మీకు ఇటువంటి దండన ఉంది అని నిర్ణయించేవాళ్ళు అనమాట. అందుకనే ఈ పనిష్మెంట్ అంటే హషేం దగ్గర నుంచి అని కాదు, కానీ కొన్ని తప్పులు చేస్తే మాత్రం హషేం మనల్ని దూరం చేసేస్తాడు, అది కరెక్ట్. ఇది స్ట్రైప్స్ అని వచ్చింది చూసారా, ఇది పెద్దలు నిర్ణయించిన శిక్ష విధులు ఈ శిక్షలు ఉంటాయన్నమాట. తీసుకులా మిస్ అవుతుంది.
All right, and you let them know that it's not the modern Israelite, the modern Israeli government doesn't do these things.
I think no.
Yeah, just let them know that also, that it's talking about a proper Israelite government, not the modern secular government.
ఓకే, ఇది వరకు మన పూర్వం ఉన్న ఇజ్రాయేలీ ప్రభుత్వంలో అంటే అప్పుడు పెద్దలు యాజకులు వీళ్ళందరూ ఉండేవాళ్ళు కదా, ఆ టైంలో ఇటువంటి శిక్షలన్నీ అమల్లో ఉన్నాయి. కానీ ఇప్పుడు దండనలు శిక్షలు అవేమి ఇప్పుడు ఉన్న ఈ మోడర్న్ యుగంలో ఇజ్రాయేలీ గవర్నమెంట్ అవేమి విధించదన్నమాట.
And also we should not do physical punishment to people for breaking these laws. Even if it's our wife or our husband, hey, you should not beat up your child. If you have a rabbi, this does not let your rabbi just be beating people. That is not the halakha.
ఒకవేళ ఇటువంటి తప్పులు ఏదన్నా చేస్తే తల్లిదండ్రులు పిల్లల్ని కొట్టటమా లేదా భర్త భార్యను కొట్టటమా, అంటే ఈ తప్పులు చేశారు మీరు ఉపవాసం ఉండలేదు, ఉపవాసం ఉండకోకుండా ఇటువంటి పనులు చేశారని మనుషుల్ని శారీరకంగా హింసించటం మాత్రం లేదు, చెయ్యకూడదు. అట్లాగే రబ్బాయిలు కూడా చెయ్యకూడదు.
Okay. School awesome. All right, let's see. Would you like to read this paragraph?
Okay. It is obligatory.
Rabbi, I think we missed the first one.
What was that?
The first paragraph, the sixth.
Oh, this one?
From the starting, yeah.
Yeah, I think someone already read that, but we can read it again. Sipora, do you have strength to read both of these?
Okay.
You have a lot of strength, sister. God bless you.
No problem. Just as the obligation to refrain from work applies both during the day and at night, so too the obligation to refrain from these activities and thus to afflicate oneself applies both during the day and at night. It is obligatory to add time from the mundane to the scared at both the entrance and departure of the holiday, as implied by 23:32. And you shall afflicate your souls on the 9th of the month in the evening.
Okay, this is afflict. 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 That's it. Afflict. And it means to have some suffering, a little bit of suffering. Not dangerous suffering,
Okay. And you shall afflict.
Afflict. Think of it like two different words. Afflict. Do the T at the end by itself. Afflict. That's it.
Your souls on the 9th month of 9th of the month in the evening. Since the date of the fast in the 10th. The intent is obviously that one begin fasting and afflicting.
It's your favorite word, afflicting, afflicting, afflicting.
Afflicting.
Yes, like two different words, afflicting.
Afflicting.
You got it, perfect.
Oneself in the afternoon of the 9th, which directly precedes the 10th.
Yofi, kol hakavod. All right, let's see. Besalel, or Mr. Yisrael, would you like to read for us? Mr. Foreman.
Wait a minute. ఇది 9వ రోజు సాయంత్రం నుంచి మనల్ని మనం చిన్నగా మనల్ని మనం బాధ పెట్టుకోవటం అనమాట. ఏది 9వ రోజు సాయంత్రం నుంచి 10వ రోజు సాయంత్రం వరకు, అంటే మనల్ని కష్టపెట్టుకుంటున్నాం. ఎట్లా కష్టపెట్టుకుంటాము? తిండి తినకోకుండా, నీరు తాక్కోకుండా, శరీరాన్ని మనసుని కష్టపెట్టుకుంటా, హషేంని మనం పశ్చాత్తాపడతా అడుగుతాం అన్నమాట. ఓకే, Tiskulah mitzvot.
Tiskulah Asor. Mr. Foreman, Israel Foreman, would you like to read for us?
Well, I would, but the print on my screen is so small I can't read it.
Maybe I can make it bigger. Let's see. Let's see. Does that help?
Okay. Similarly, at the departure of the holiday, one should prolong the affliction slightly, entering the night of the 11th, which follows the 10th as implied. From every evening to evening, you shall keep this day of refraining.
All right. Any questions so far? I know we're talking about all kinds of stuff.
No.
No questions? Would you like to read this paragraph also?
Certainly.
All right. Tiskulah mitzvot. Good job.
When women eat and drink until nightfall without knowing we are obligated for add time from the weekday to the holiday, they should not be rebuked lest they perform the transgression willfully. It is impossible for there to be a policeman in every person's house to warn his wives. Thus, it is preferable to let the situation remain as it is, so that they will transgress unintentionally instead of intentionally. The same principle applies in other similar
instances, situations.
Yes.
All right. Tiskulah mitzvot. May you merit to do more mitzvot. All right. So this is a very, very powerful little paragraph here. And it shows us a number of interesting things. I'm sure Sipora loves this paragraph, right, Sipora?
Yes.
Silence is agreement.
When women eat and drink until nightfall, without knowing that we are obligated to add time from the weekday to the holiday, they should not be
rebuked. That means we should not speak to them with words of correction. We shouldn't correct them, even though they're doing a mistake.
So we don't correct them if they are eating or drinking.
Until nightfall. Right. This is all speaking in general. It's not talking about a woman who would know better. We have to remember that historically, women did not know how to read, to be honest. Some did, but the majority did not know how to read. And they often did not know as much, even Jewish women did not know as much about halakha as the men did. So when it came to rabbinic laws, they were very lenient with women, right? Obviously, Sipora, you are different because you've already learned this law. And we want people to learn, but the reality in the past was different from today. Today, people have time to learn. But the principle is still true, right? It says the same applies in other similar instances. Anytime that we see someone doing a sin or doing something wrong, we should not tell them to change what they're doing if we know they're going to keep on doing it anyway. It's the idea is that it's better that they do it on accident than that they break the law on purpose. So if you know that they will listen to you, they will understand, that's different. But if it's most likely that they will not change, it's better to not tell them. Sababa? Sababa.
It is where we stopped.
We stopped
Rebuked.
yes,
Rebuked.
correct. Rebuked.
Lest they perform the transgression willfully. It is impossible for there to be a policeman in every person's house to warn his wives. Thus, it is preferable to let the situation remain as it is, so that they will transgress. You need
Unintentionally.
unintentionally.
Not on purpose.
Unintentionally. Instead of intentionally. The same principle applies in other similar instances.
So the halacha is that you should not eat until nightfall before Yom Kippur. We should not be eating up to the very last moment. But if we see people doing that, if they will not understand, or if we know they're going to keep doing it anyway, it's better to not tell them. We only need to make sure that they're not eating on Yom Kippur itself. All right? But that's talking about people in general. Not if it's someone you know is studying and really is very serious. That's a different situation. Not everybody's very serious. Not like this man in every person's house. He's very serious about having more than one wife. I don't know if anyone caught that. Did you guys catch this? To warn his wives, plural.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see. Porta's going to kill me after this lesson. Okay. Let's see. Bezalel, has it been a while that you read?
Oh, I don't know. I could read again.
Go right ahead. Bechavod. Go right ahead. Everybody say bechavod. Bechavod.
Bechavod.
That's a very polite way of saying go right ahead. Bechavod. It means with honor. Bechavod.